Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to today's Live Inspired podcast episode. So glad that you're here with me today, and I'd love to stay connected with you all week long. Could you use a little inspiration beyond just this podcast? If you could, I hope you can, connect with me. I'm very active on social media, sharing positive, actionable thoughts and videos and posts about what could be inspiring to you right this moment. So find me on Facebook by searching John O'Leary Live Inspired. My Instagram handle is johnoleary.inspires. Or if you're hanging out on Twitter, the handle there is at JOLearyInspires. Anywhere that you are on social media, we are hanging out as well, and we are sharing news that is elevating for you in your work, in your relationships, and in your life. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
Welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. John is the #1 national best-selling author of the book On Fire. He's a world-class inspirational speaker, and he's the host of the Live Inspired podcast. John interviews extraordinary individuals on their life story so that you can wake up from accidental living and more fully live your life story. Here's your host, John O'Leary.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary. You know, I have the honor of not only bringing you the Live Inspired podcast weekly, but my day job, if you will, is actually as a speaker. I speak all around the region, all around the country, and now all around the world. Well, while in Philadelphia, I was speaking at a conference at Wharton College. It was on how to excel and really achieve greatness in leadership. It was back in March of 2017. I spoke for about an hour, walked off the stage, got a couple hugs from a couple of the organizers. I'm grabbing my bag because the flight's right around the corner, and then I get tackled. Not literally tackled, but it was close to it. A guy who I'd seen out of the audience actually came into the back area. He gave me this big hug. He had this huge smile on his face, and he said, "You've got to meet my son." And you know, many people share the stories of their upbringing or their parents or neighbors or their children with me. It's an amazing part of doing what I do. I get to hear their stories. But there was something about his tone and sincerity and passion. And then he pulls out a CD and he hands me the CD that his son has created. I listen to this. I start learning more. I start being inspired by the story that you are going to be inspired by today. And you'll know why. Not only did I hug that man back then, but today I get to call his son not only our Live Inspired guest for the day, but my friend for life. My friends, I encourage you right now to buckle up, open wide your hearts, open even wider to your journals. You're going to want to take notes on this. It's not just about music. It's not just about rap. This is about life. It's about overcoming. It's about moving through the impossible to prove that it is possible, and so are we. I'm going to bring in now my friend. His name is Sparsh Shah. Sparsh, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. O'Leary. Wow, there have been so many introductions that I have had the amazing pleasure of hearing, and this is by far one of the best introductions I've ever heard.
Sparsh,
thank you so much.
You're not getting paid for this podcast, regardless of how nice you are to me during it. You need to know that right now, okay, my man?
Don't worry, I've never done it for the money. I've done it to inspire.
Well, you have done it to be inspired. And the cool thing about doing that, Sparsh, is in doing it for that reason, it elevates those watching. And we're going to talk today about your music. We're going to talk about your career. We're going to talk about some huge bright lights that you have experienced. But before we talk about that stuff, I want to take us all the way back to your mother, actually. Your mother and your father came over to the United States in what year? Was it 2002?
I believe so, yeah. 2002. They came as first-generation Indian immigrants to the U.S.
And not far into it, your mother finds out that she's expecting. She's going to have a child. She's going to have a little boy. And her and your dad start dreaming about what this little boy is. Your dad, in fact, has vivid dreams that he's going to be playing cricket, that he's going to be playing tennis, that he's going to be wrestling with this little man about to be born. And yet when you arrive, your father's dreams and probably your mother's dreams change dramatically. Tell us why.
Well, it's two words, Osteogenesis Imperfecta. And if you break down that word, osteo is bone, genesis is creation, and imperfecta, you just take out the letter A. the creation of my bones was imperfect. And osteogenesis imperfecta is basically just a genetic condition that makes my bones really brittle. And so my mom and dad both had the recessive gene, and I ended up coming out of my mother's womb with almost 30 to 40 fractures that pretty much occurred just as the water broke.
So I want our listeners to hear that again. You are on the Live Inspired podcast, and you're listening to the voice of a brave little man. His name, again, is Sparsh Shah. He's 15 years old now. He turns 16 in about a month and a half. But when he's born into the world with, I think, 32 or so broken bones and limited prospects at life. One of the more touching stories is that the doctors and nurses put in front of your mom and dad a do not resuscitate, a DNR. And they say, well, I think you should sign this. And then your mother looked into your eyes. And when she looked into your eyes, has she ever told you what she saw?
She always did. This was like the story I grew up with. And I'm so glad I grew up with it because I think it's inspired me. That's what has solely inspired me to realize my purpose in this life was just not about myself. And that, she always told me that when she saw my eyes, my eyes locked on to anybody that I set them to. And she saw a twinkle in my eyes, and not just like a twinkle. She saw some sort of message in my eyes, and as if I was divinely speaking to her, like, Mom, Dad, I came into this world for a great reason and to change it forever. So don't worry, I will not die. Well,
your eyes were speaking truth that she was going to find out just to what degree as you grew with her, although the journey forward was extraordinarily hard. Talk about brittle bone disease. Most of us are completely unfamiliar with it. So what does that mean?
All it is that, well, I'm going to put it to you this way. I guess a lot of us have gone through fractures in our lives, right? Mr. O'Leary, I'm guessing you've also gone through one.
So from now on, call me John and call me Brother John if you'd like. But I've had a couple fractures among other injuries. And obviously we all know how painful they are and how long they take to heal.
Of course. So yeah, because of my brittle bone condition, I have suffered almost 130 fractures throughout my life, and I'm still, only God knows how many more I'll have. And I've broken pretty much everything from my arms to my legs to my ribs to, in fact, when I was younger and it was in the winter, my dad was taking me home from school and he slipped from the driveway and I broke my skull. I almost had to have a surgery for it, and my mom and dad were basically praying all night that nothing of the sort would have to happen. And miraculously, the blood stopped clotting from inside. It like completely stopped. I guess you could say I've gone through a lot, but hey, we all go through a lot, right?
Yes, indeed. When did you realize that what you were going through wasn't what everyone else was going through? And far from being just painful or a pain in the neck, this was, in some regards, unfair. When did you first realize as a child that this was very different than most kids' experiences in life?
I guess I would say I've always had that realization. I feel like it just naturally came to me that, hey, I can't really walk. I can't do stand, run around, play like other kids. Although I would say that it never really bothered me too much because, I was like, hey, look, this is something that I've been given, something that I need to accept. And if I don't accept it later, whether I accept it now or later, it's not going to change me, right? And God gave me a set of cards. And, well, as they say, you can't change the cards you dealt, just how you play the hand. So I had to realize that very early on, and I'm glad I did, because without that, I don't think I would be the positive person I am today.
Have you always been positive? And if the answer is yes, what do you do to stay positive? Because the rest of us are seeking that medicine. So we're longing in a marketplace of gloominess, and it's cold outside and the markets are dropping and life is hard. And then along comes you, this kid that has been through everything twice, this kid who is stationary in a wheelchair that needs an awful lot of help and goes through an awful lot of pain. And you do it all with this big twinkle in your eye, this great voice we'll talk about in a moment, and a smile on your face. So where does your joy come from? Where does your peace and your that great optimism come from?
Sure. I mean, we all go through, rough times in life. I am obviously definitely not an exception. And of course, it's not just my fractures, you know. I've dealt with some storms in my life, but I think the main way that I stay positive is that I have firmly always believed that every single thing that happens in life is just part of God's big plan for us. I honestly feel like this is why I'm actually very thankful that I was born, as they say, disabled. As I say, I've dissed my disability. So it's not really a disability for me. It's an ability. But I truly believe that, you know, I'm thankful that God made me this way, because then I could be a light to other people and show them that, you know, no matter what you go through in life, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to get through the darkness first. Through my rough times, I always just like to think that there's always a valley before the hill, but sometimes the steeper the valley, the higher the hill, you know?
Right. Well, you've gone through some steep valleys and high hills. When you are in your wheelchair and you're in the family room, and then you look over and your little brother is wrestling with your dad, and you can't participate, what do you feel just as a normal kid? Like how do you feel when you see that, and what do you do with it?
Well, I'll put it to you this way, in a dual perspective, because in 5th grade, that used to happen to me a lot when I was in elementary school, because I know there was a part of my life where I did feel that way, where all the kids used to be outside in recess every day, and literally nobody wanted to play with me. I actually did feel pretty down in that moment. I don't get the opportunity to talk to a lot of people about that, but just to show y'all that, yes, I have been through those times of, you know, feeling very inferior to others. That, you know, when people used to play outside in recess, used to play without me, they just leave me out. And I used to feel like, oh man, if only I could just join them and be with them, then my life would be so much better than it is now. But I know that when my brother wrestles with my dad, I just have the biggest smile on my face, because I know they're having such a great time. And I may not be able to wrestle with them. You know, my brother makes me wrestle with him sometimes, so without a choice. But even though I know that I can't wrestle with them, I know that they're having fun. And I just have fun with my brother in different ways. I have fun with my dad in different ways. And, you know, now that I think about it, my dad dreamt that I would be a cricket player. I would be a tennis player. I would be a swimmer. And right now, I guess my brother kind of took over my place for that.
Yes, he has.
You know, everything in life, it just perfectly fit.
Well, what is perfectly fit for you is the movement away from cricket and tennis and swimming and towards singing. When did you first discover music?
I would say that it's always been around me, although my parents started to pick it up mostly when I was around like 3 years old. Because at that time, I was mostly developing new skills. I started to read actually kind of fluently when I was 3 or 3.5. And around that time, also, my mom always used to play songs on the radio. We used to hear, she used to play songs on her phone. We used to hear songs on the radio. I was surrounded by music all the time. So I wanted to sing almost everything. And when somebody didn't sing right, I would let them know on the spot that they weren't singing right. I may not have known anything about music theory, but, you know, I would try and tell them that they weren't singing right, because I could just sense it. And I think that also comes from my mom, partly because my mom, I kind of say, is my, you know, vocal coach. She may not know music theory, but she was like me when I was little. She can tell me when I'm off and try to help me out. So I've started singing that way, and my mom and dad realized I had something. So yes. I started with piano classes. That didn't really work out, though, because the fact that I broke my arm so frequently meant that I didn't have enough airtime on the piano. But my mom always told me that, you know, no matter how many bones you break in your life, your voice will never break. So at 6 years old, I started learning Indian classical music. So I started with a whole nother hemisphere of music, and I have been learning that for 9 years. I've been learning Western vocal music kind of on and off for 5 years now. And, you know, since then, I've won a lot of music competitions and stuff. And, I mean, I guess from there, it just skyrocketed.
Well, it continues to skyrocket. And when I hear your story and I hear your sweet, beautiful, angelic voice, and it is awesome and it is good, it's clear, we're going to play it later on for you, my friends, listeners, I think to myself, I wonder who his big musical influences are. And I'm always surprised to learn, Sparsh, that one of your great heroes in music is Eminem, baby. Slim Shady in the house. What is it about Eminem that you like so much?
I feel like the two great things that I liked about him are, number one, his ability, and number two, his background. And by ability, I mean, like, I know, like, many people would disagree, and obviously this is an opinion, but I truly believe that without a doubt, Eminem is the greatest lyricist of all time to ever hit the rap industry.
Wow.
And I don't mean that in a biased way, but he literally read the dictionary to come to the level he was at. I have not heard of a lot of rappers, especially nowadays, with that kind of determination to be the best in the game. And he really, in that sense, stands as an example for me that, you know, if he could do that, I mean, he probably just had a dictionary. I'm blessed to have been given a rhyming dictionary in middle school. So that's, you know, one leg up. But the fact that he practiced so hard to get to where he was, and also his story, that, you know, it's literally a rags to riches story. He came, you know, from a very, I guess you could say, impoverished life and background, and I think he failed the 10th grade twice. I'm in 10th grade right now, and as far as I know, I'm not failing that. But, you know. Well,
you're not through yet, man. So don't count your chickens before they hatch.
That's true.
You have a song from him that you love, and it's called Not Afraid. What is it about the song Not Afraid that just moves you?
I feel like what moved me was that his message was very inspirational. And I think that's what made me like Eminem in the first place. I always heard, you know, about the dark side of Eminem, that he's a bad influence throughout my life, that, you know, and I've always avoided rap because of all the cursing and everything involved. But when I heard the song, I mean, despite all of that, I heard something different. I heard, like, you know, he wrote that song after coming out of a big, you know, drug relapse and almost overdosing. And so I could really feel that his lyrics were genuine. And so I think that's what made me hooked into him. So I was like, you know what? I have to do a cover of it myself. And I did. I practiced a lot for it. I went into the studio, and I currently, for that cover, have 75 million views on all social media sites.
We're going to play that right now, Sparsh. I want our listeners to hear why 75 million listeners were moved by this song. And when we come back from it, I want you to walk us through the lyrics. So I'm going to play the song right now for you. It's a song called Not Afraid, and it's by our guest. His name is Purythem. You may know him right now, though, as Sparsh Shah. Sparsh, take it away. Here it is.
Take a stand. Everybody, come take my hand. Walk this road together through the storm, whatever weather, cold and warm. Just letting you know that you're not alone. Holler if you feel like you've been down the same road. Yeah. It's been a ride. I guess I had to go to that place to get to this one. Now some of you must still be in that place. If you're trying to get out, just follow me. I'll get you there. You can try and read my lyrics off of this paper before then, but you won't take the sting out these words before saying. Cause ain't no way I'ma let you stop me from causing me. When I say I'ma do something, I do it. I don't give a glance what you think. I'm doing this for me. Forget the world, be the beans. It's gassed up, everything's stopping me. I'ma be what I set out shouldn't have to rhyme these words in the rhythm for you don't know it's a rap. You said you was king, you lied through your teeth. For that, curse your feelings. Instead of getting crowned and getting captain to the fans, I never let you down and get them back. I promise to never go back on that promise. In fact, let's be honest, the last relapse CD was that. Perhaps I run the math sense into the ground. Relax, I ain't going back to that now. All I'm trying to say is get back, kaboom, blow. Cause I ain't playing around. It's a game called Circle and I don't know how. I'm way too up to back down. But I think I'm still trying to figure this stuff out. Thought I had them mapped out, but I guess I didn't. These stupid black clouds that follows me around, but it's time to exercise these demons. These are haters are doing jumping jacks now. I'm afraid to take a stance. Everybody, come take my hand. We'll walk this road together through the storm, whatever weather, cold or warm. Just let you know that you're not alone. Holler if you feel like you've been down the same road. And I just can't keep living this way. So we're starting today. I'm breaking out of this cage. I'm standing up, I'ma face my demons. I'm manning up, I'ma hold my ground. I've had enough, I'm so fed up. Time to put my life back together right now. It was my decision to get clean. I did it for me. Admittedly, I probably did it subliminally for you, so I could come back a brand new me or help see me through. And don't even realize what you did. Believe me, I've been through the ringer, but they can do little to the peace fingers. I think I got a tear in my eye. I feel like the king of my world. Haters can make like bees when those stingers and drop dead. No more beef flingers, no more drama from now on. I promise to focus solely on handling my responsibilities as a brother. So style me, swear to always treat this group like my brother and raise it. You couldn't let this thing string along, cause the way I feel, I'm strong enough to go to the gym or the fitness club and go lift 100-pounder up, cause I'm raising the bar. I shoot for the moon, but I'm too busy gazing at stars. I feel amazing and I'm not afraid to take a stand. Come take my hand. Walk this road together through the storm, whatever weather, cold or warm. Just letting you know that you're not alone. Holler if you feel like you've been down the same road. Pure rhythm.
Man, the first 19 times I heard that song, you singing it, you rapping it, I was moved. I had butterflies on my stomach and goosebumps all over my body. Walk us through, Sparsh, some of the lines from that song. Like, which ones really jump off the page at you?
Actually, like right from the get-go, Eminem, he was like, what was it? Yeah, it's been a ride. I guess I had to go to that place to get to this one. Now, some of you might still be in that place. If you're trying to get out, just follow me. I'll take you there. Like, there can never be something more uplifting to start a song than those kinds of encouraging words. And I think that's what really caught me. And then when he talks about how, he feels so powerful, he could lift the whole liquor bar up. He could, he's gonna raise the roof off the stage, and the way he raises the roof off the stage is gonna raise his daughter. The commitment that he just has, that passionate fire, that's what got me. I know, because I made it a clean version.
Right.
I changed the liquor bar line to, it was something like I could lift a 100-pounder up.
Yes.
I said I could lift a 100-pounder up because, like, I could understand what he was trying to say, that he was feeling so strong and so unstoppable. And that is what I loved about the song, that he felt unstoppable. And that song made me feel unstoppable.
Sparsh, you recorded that a couple years back. You sent it out into space. You hope a couple people are going to listen to it. You wake up on day 2 and it's 30, and day 3 it's 100, and then it's 400. And today when you wake up, it's 75 million. What do you think it is about the way you interpret that song and sing it and rap it out that has the rest of us tuning in and sharing?
I mean, I guess, first of all, it was clean. So I guess, there would probably be a lot more views and a lot more kids and teenagers especially would be able to watch it, which I'm really glad, because as, a rapper and my stage name's Purythem, pure plus rhythm, literally it's a fusion of the words. I've always believed that, it was never necessary to curse and rap in order to really inspire people, in order to, share the same message. And so now that makes it accessible for everyone. And I think also because I added something very unique to it, which I like to call raga rap. Now, since I've been learning Indian classical music for 9 years and Western music for 5, Indian classical music was very integral to that song. I started with an alap, which is defined as the exposition of a rag, which is, I guess, akin to like a kind of scale in Western music, but it's much more complicated. It is the exposition of a rag without rhythmic accompaniment. That's basically what I did. It's basically like a lot of riffs and runs. But
Wait, can you give us an example? Because like for most of us listening, we don't. That it's hard to really track with that. So when you're saying this, what do you mean?
I mean, for example, like the alap that I start Not Afraid with is and I just randomly one day came up with that by finding out the chords of Not Afraid, and it just came to me. And I feel like that described the whole song in a nutshell. It was an exposition of the song without rhythmic accompaniment. And so I guess that might have also caught the ears of a lot of listeners. And I actually experimented with this new genre of mine, raga rap, throughout the entire album that I made of Eminem songs after Not Afraid, which is tribute to Eminem. So, with that, I was figuring, I guess you could say I was developing my very unique identity as an artist. And, even though I was doing covers, you can always spice up, the old dish.
Well, you've spiced it up and it's gone viral. Now people are learning about you. You've performed live many times. And from what I can see, probably the most incredible experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, is at Madison Square Gardens.
Oh, yes. This is definitely one of my most amazing experiences. Yes.
So, Sparsh, most of us are familiar with Madison Square Gardens. It's a pretty big house in New York City. Why are you there? Tell me what you're going to do there.
Every time I went to Madison Square Garden, they called me there to sing the National Anthem. For all the Knicks games, I would come and sing the Star Spangled Banner. And one time I also went to a Harlem Globetrotters game, which I was invited for because I had won their Junior Phenom Award. I was invited to sing God Bless America at halftime. And it was a really amazing experience. And it was mind-blowing singing in front of, 20,000 people. I had grown up thinking Madison Square Garden was like the biggest house on earth. And yes, it is. It is a very big house. And every time I go there, I still feel like overwhelmed in a positive way about how big that stage is, because the energy is so great. The bigger the stage is, usually the energy is much greater. And I think you would know that even better than I, because you speak at a lot of places. I loved dinosaurs when I was younger, and there was this Walking with Dinosaurs show that used to be on Madison Square Garden. I always wanted to go, but I never went. But the way that they portrayed Madison Square Garden was like this huge, gigantic place. I was expecting to come into that stage very scared. And the weirdest thing happens. I go into the stage the first time, and I'm like, I surprised myself by thinking, this is it? And I was surprised by my own reaction. And I was like, I am so ready to sing in front of all these people. And it was good that I had other experience on my hand as well. I've sung also in Times Square and other even bigger venues. So I was like, wow, it's just an amazing experience. Every time I go there, everybody's really nice, and the atmosphere is amazing. It really empowers me.
Well, I think that what you may not know, and I hope you are beginning to recognize it, is just how much you empower everyone else. As you roll into a room, the room itself changes. every time, Sparsh, and it is inspirational to see it. It's inspirational to be a part of it. And now today it's inspirational to share it with our listeners.
Thank you.
That is a fact. And so you also gave a TED Talk, which had to be very, very moving and challenging because you got to prepare for it and you got to deliver this message and you got a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
When people left that TED Talk, because most of us who speak start with the end in mind, you want them to take one or two ideas away. What are you hoping that the listeners for that TED Talk might have heard?
I just hope that, the 4 steps that I talk about in my TED Talk, it was how I turned impossible into I'm possible in my life and how you can do it too. So in that TED Talk, I explained 4 key points, which were to find your passion, never hold yourself back, help others, and dream big. And all I hope is that, at the end of the day, if anyone listens to my TED Talk, they can use those 4 steps in life to, really, really turn around their lives and view every situation as positive instead of, thinking that the tunnel is dark and that's all you see. Try and dig out and you may find the light in the other tunnel. All I would say that I tried to give them, is the shovel to dig themselves out. Because, well, if you really believe it, I believe you can achieve it.
Sparsh, for you personally, is the physical stuff harder or dealing with the emotional side of the physical stuff harder?
I think it's both because, physically, it's very unpredictable. I could have, first of all, I never know when I'm going to get a fracture. And though I try my best to, keep myself, safe, a lot of times people like me get fractures doing the most mundane of things. Like I threw something at my brother. I threw a jacket at my brother because he was angry, and I literally tore my humerus in 2, broke my humerus in 2. I oftentimes, when I'm shifting in my chair or just, just doing regular stuff, I get hurt. And so, number one, not only is it unpredictable when I'll get a fracture, but it's also unpredictable what kind of fracture, how much it'll hurt. I can get a hairline fracture and basically get through almost a whole day without a cast because it doesn't hurt that much, to like I said, when I threw that jacket at my brother because I was angry at him, it felt like fire was eating at my bone. It was actually that bad. And also, I've gone through a lot of surgeries. So I've had 8 rods and 22 screws put in my body. So, 19 screws, 2 rods alone in my back.
Right.
I had a spinal fusion on August of last year, so 2017. So it was very, very unpredictable. But I say emotionally, I guess it's a little less harder to deal with, simply because, when you got a fracture, what can you do about it? You can't just snap your finger and then your bones are healed and then that's it. You just gotta keep fighting and just keep pushing through. You would know that even better than I do, Mr. John, because you would probably know that so much better than I do because you had your whole body burned head to toe.
Well, we're learning it.
Really
I think we're learning it together, Sparsh. So I'm curious. I look up to you. I know a whole lot of other individuals around our country and around the world actually look up to you. They love the voice that you bring and speak and sing. Who do you look up to? Who are some inspirations for you?
Well, first of all, definitely you. Definitely you, Mr. John. You were definitely one of my inspirations. As soon as Dad told me about your story, he showed me a version of your keynote speech, and I had actually seen it. I was like, wow, I couldn't believe, my dad told me about it, and then I saw it myself. I saw you speak, and it just really moved me. I can't explain it, but it moved me. So you definitely inspired me because I see that resilience in you, Mr. John. And not just you, but I like to say, everybody inspires me in one way or another because everybody has different experiences, different backgrounds. We all bring something different to the table, right?
Yes.
So everybody inspires me in one way or another. But most importantly, my family has inspired me. Without the positive outlook they've given me, I wouldn't be the positively, I wouldn't have the positive attitude I had today. My fans inspire me. My friends inspire me because they support me through my rough times. I remember when I had my spinal fusion, I had, just the next day after surgery, my dad asked me how I was feeling. In fact, half of my own surprise, I said I felt empowered. And my dad said, do you know how many people have been praying for you over the past day after I told them that you were going through this surgery? You know how many people have been hoping that you will get better and wishing you? And I was like, wow, I guess it's no coincidence, I've been followed by 100 countries now. So I guess you could say, though small, my support system has been really, really big in more ways than one. And finally, of course, I would say, God inspires me because, hey, if I didn't go through, if he didn't spare me from the 40 fractures that I had when I was born, and if my mom and dad hadn't been, hadn't taken the decisions they made, I feel like so much of my life is so much divine intervention because I just I know God put me here for a purpose. So if he put me here for a purpose, I've got to do all that I can to do justice to what he gave me, So that is what I truly believe.
Well, what your mother saw in your eyes 15 long years ago, we see in your eyes and we hear in your voice today. It is an incredibly inspiring life that you lead. And it's not an easy one, but it's incredibly inspiring. Before I shift gears into what we call the Live Inspired 7, Sparsh, I'm curious, what would you say to someone right now who is listening to this and they're just struggling, man? The light that you still have in your eyes has kind of faded from theirs. What advice might you give?
At the end of every tunnel, there is light. But if we focus on the darkness, right? Darkness is just absence of light. If we just focus on the darkness, how will we ever be able to see light? If we worry about the fact that the light is not there, then we can never dig ourselves out and see the light that is in the other side. When you dig tunnels, right, you may start at one place, but when you have to take out, when you dig a hole, right, when you dig a hole down someplace and then you dig a hole out the other end, you don't see the light until you dig out the dirt that's at the top of the grass, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all I would say is that if you want to turn, those walls into tunnels of light, all you have to do is dig. It may be very hard. And hey, look, we all go through it, right? It's very hard, but all we have to do is, just kind of be like Dorothy, just keep digging, just keep digging, just keep digging. And, I've always believed when one door closes, another one opens. But, oftentimes we look so hard and long and regretfully at that closed door, we forget that there was a door open for us. And, sometimes maybe the doors that are closed in our life, maybe they're just closed so that we can open them again. You never know. So I would always say that no matter how many closed doors we have in life, it's so much better to focus on opening the doors that are open and opening those doors, because why waste your life in sadness when we can enjoy a life of happiness? Why waste your life in the past when we can think about what to do now so that it can give us a greater future? The past is history. The future is a mystery. The present is the greatest gift we can receive.
Well, those are some wise words coming to you, rapping to you right now from Sparsh Shah. Sparsh, we're going to shift gears a little bit into what we call the Live Inspired 7. Every great rapper and musician and leader that I've ever had the pleasure of interviewing has been asked some form of these questions. So question number one for you, my friend, what is the best book you've ever read?
The best book I've ever read? Ooh. I think the best books I've ever read would probably be How to Win Friends and Influence People. I have not exactly read it. It was more like an audiobook. But because my dad loved, when I was little, my dad and I used to listen to audiobooks in the car and while we were driving to the hospital for my treatments. And so, he would put these kind of stuff, How to Win Friends and Influence People, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. For my ninth grade English class, I had to read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. I feel like all of those books are really great because they inspired me to, become a better person and just become a better personality in life. So I think those are some of the best books that I've read in my life.
Sparsh, what's one positive characteristic, one trait that you possessed when you were a little child, a little kid, that you wish you had and exhibited as brilliantly today?
I would say just resilience and optimism. Because I know, when I was, I don't know how to say this. My dad always tells me, how I was so bubbly and so, my dad said I used to have like a smile that would light up anybody's face as soon as they walked in and they saw me. Like when I used to smile, like that's what would happen. I only hope that I do the same, but sometimes the storms of life intervene on our, daily scheduled programming. And sometimes, it can kind of weigh on you, it weighs on everybody. We all go through storms, but I honestly feel like if I had that brightness, if I have the amount of resilience and the amount of positivity that I had when I was little, that same, spirit that I had, I feel like the way I get through life would be so much better, So I try to do that every day.
I hear what you're saying. Really, what I would suggest, though, is if you had any more optimism, any more resiliency, or any more brightness, you would burn down the rooms that you walk into because you exude it and it's contagious. And I will hope and pray you don't lose it. But brother, you have it in spades. So question number 3 is, if your home caught fire and all living things, your parents, your pets, your brother, everybody's out, and you have an opportunity to roll in and grab one item, what would you grab?
If I had the opportunity to roll in and grab in one thing, what would that be?
Just one item from your house.
One item. My MacBook.
I hear you. If you could sit on a bench overlooking a beach and have a long conversation with anyone, Sparsh, living or dead, who would you visit with?
Living or dead. If I could visit anybody. I'd probably visit Jesus.
What would the first question across the bow be? What would you want to know first?
Oh, snap. I am not prepared for this question. What is the first thing I would ask Jesus if I met him and we talked on the beach? Man, you know what? This is what I would ask him. How and why is it that their life is so imperfect? You made it perfect the way it is. That's what I would ask him. How is it that in life, though it is so imperfect for each of us, you designed it so perfectly? Because I feel like every single thing in life, we may all have imperfect, lives. And I told this to my chemistry teacher once, that, like in math and stuff, when we do problems, we oftentimes get what teachers call ugly answers. So they tell us to round to the nearest digit, Mm-hmm. But at the same time, those answers may look ugly to us. They look imperfect, but at the same time, they're very perfect because they extend to an infinite number of digits, right? So it's perfectly imperfect. So in the same way, I've realized that in life, things we may go through, we may all be imperfect. We may all, fall, but at the same time, life is designed so perfectly. We meet people at such right times.
Right.
And that's why, I believe, they say in Hebrew, coincidence is not a word. And I truly understand that because I've never believed in anything in life is a coincidence. That is what I would ask Jesus if we sat on the beach, because I've seen that in life, everything is imperfect, yet perfect. I would just ask him, how is that so?
How do they square up? So tell me, what is the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received. I think it's just that, the advice I received from my parents growing up that, I wouldn't say I can't really point it back to a speech or a certain time in my life, but just the way that my parents raised me, and they told me that, no matter no matter what happens in your life, never, ever, ever give up on your passion. The way I told you before, Mr. John, about how my mom told me that no matter how many bones you break in your life, your voice will never break. And how, when she told me about that twinkle in the eye story when I was little, over and over again, she would always tell me you could do anything in life because I truly believe that you have come here for a reason. I think without that attitude, without that advice that I should never hold myself back in anything I do, but give 110% effort, I would not be the hardworking person and the diligent and the honest person that I am today. I just wouldn't be.
For sure.
Because I think that's it. That's the best advice I've ever received. Never hold yourself back in anything. I read my friend's shirt, actually. Wisdom comes from the craziest places, right? Like, my friend's shirt read this. It said, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I was like, that's so true. That, if we don't work hard, then the gifts that we are used are just going to rust. I may have been, God may have given me silver, but now it's mine. I have to refine it,
Well, man,
if I don't refine it, silver it's just going to rust.
You have been refining it. So I think it's going to lead us perfectly to the final question, which is, it has been said that all great people, all great rappers, all great leaders, and you are certainly one of them, my friend, can have their lives summed up in one sentence. How would you like your one sentence to read?
My one sentence. Yeah. I think my one sentence would be, though I struggled, I persevered. Though I faltered, I conquered. Though I don't know. I feel like my one sentence would probably just be, though I struggled, I refused to suffer. And because I refused to suffer, I conquered. That's my sentence. Though I struggled, I refused to suffer. And because I refused to suffer, I conquered.
Well, my friend, you have struggled. You have overcome. You have conquered. You are teaching the rest of us how to follow suit, how to get in line behind you. Digging. Keep digging. Whether you're stuck behind Shawshank and you need redemption, or you are just in a dark place in life right now, keep digging. And then finally, our friend Eminem, and now our new friend Sparsh Shah, reminds us to not be afraid, to go through life with some challenges, with some difficulties, but to not give into it, to rise above it, and to not have fear. So Sparsh Shah, this has been a delight, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Actually, if you don't mind me asking, I don't mean to do this last minute, but is it okay if I ask you a question?
Hold on, let me ask our studio audience.
Yeah, sure.
They're looking at me. It's my producer, and he is saying yes. He's saying, yeah, we can take a question live right now, so let's do it.
My question is this. I know that you talk about it all the time, but I'm just wondering, what exactly that moment you were in the hospital room, and Mr. Jack Buck comes to you, and he says, kid, keep fighting, because you just mentioned keep digging, and it immediately reminded me of that. I wanted to know personally, what was going through your head at the time that he said that? Because I know you were conscious when you heard that you said that, and I was like, what was going through your head, and what in his words or in that moment made you inspired to keep fighting?
Wow.
I really wanted to know that.
Well, this is going to be a fun way to wrap up our podcast. So Sparsh is asking about when Jack Buck, the great radio announcer for the St. Louis Cardinals, came into my life when I was 9 years old in a hospital bed in total darkness, literally. Could not see, could not move, could not talk, could hear. And then I hear this man say basically, keep digging. Now, he said keep fighting. And then he talked about John O'Leary Day at the ballpark. But when I heard those words the first time, what they brought forward to me was my focus had been all in the darkness. Like you, challenging the rest of us, I had been focused all around me on all the darkness. And there was very little light for me back then. And then my friend came in who I'd never met before, but whose voice I was very familiar with. And then those words came in, and then that light came in, and then the pathway forward was clear. Keep fighting. And it became even more clear when he came back the following day and the following day for 5 months. And what you have reminded us today, Sparsh Shah, And what we are encouraged to remind those around us is that we need voices from time to time to say, keep digging. You're not done. The light coming towards you is not a train. It's hope. And you got to fight. You got to dig. You got to move toward it, but you got to believe it's possible. And so you have done that for us today. My friends, I hope you feel as elevated leaving this podcast as I do. Sparsh, you are a titan of a human being, and we are lucky to call you our friend.
Oh, thank you so much. You are also, Mr. John, I would definitely also say you are a titan, and also way more than that. Really, thank you.
Well, tell your dad thank you for tackling me. He'll be hearing from my attorneys. My back still hurts a little bit from it, but it was worth it because meeting his son has been a gift. So thank you, Dad, for sharing your son with us. And listeners, thank you for sharing part of your day with us. That was Sparsh Shah. I am John O'Leary, and today is your day. Listeners, live inspired. Keep digging. Well, guys, if you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did, don't miss my Monday motivation essay. I'll reflect on my main takeaway from today's discussion and send it directly to your inbox so that you can begin your week just right. I want you to go right now and sign up at johnolearyinspires.com/Monday-motivation. One more time, it's johnolearyinspires.com/Monday-motivation. I'll include a link in the show notes. See you there.